And if you don't get these steps in writing a literature review, you may do it haphazardly. So the step is to know your topic, then search for relevant materials around that topic. And you are not going to be fixed on particular formulation on your topic. You tweak it, but make sure you don't digress from that area. Okay. So the second one now is the critical appraisal, the engagement. Now, if this topic is you're doing a literature review on your text, remember your variable includes the text you are working on. Okay. So, and the literature review you're going to do, especially because it's this in project literature review, other than the Canada. So this is this in project. Your literature review is not going to be just one. You have to do a literature review on the theme or the topic. For instance, this migration. You have to do a literature review on the text too, because your reader will want to know what is the scholarly engagement or the scholarship in this topic you have chosen, the theme you have chosen. What is also the scholarship in the text you are writing on? You understand it? So, if you are writing, let's say, what's your topic?
Migration, displacement, and survival.
So let's just take one. Displacement in what text?
Illustrative.
Helen Habila's Travelers. So this chapter 2 will be 2.1 Studies on Displacement. 2.2 Studies on Helen Habila's Travelers. Because you need to let your reader know where scholarship is at the moment before you're taking off. You're making a contribution, but we need to know what have been contributed in that area. So when you have searched for materials in displacement, for instance, and you got very relevant one, maybe 10, you come to Google Scholar and you downloaded 10, because you don't just download. You read the abstract, and if you read the abstract and you feel, I think this connects to what I had said, now skim through the body, and if it is okay, you download and stop it in that folder. So if, for instance, you've gotten 5 or 10 papers, 10 critics to review their works, okay, you now come to the next level, critical engagement with those works. And that is where what I'll be saying continues to ring the that you are not just summarizing. Let's say you got this from Global Scott, and it is written by Iwoma Wanyeze Page. And it is written by this scholar. And what the person is writing is women, ethnicity, and resilience in Sunset at Dawn's Sunset at Dawn. And it's related to what you are doing. You are not just, when finally you've come to the 10 works you want to use, you are not just going to read and tell your reader, this paper is talking about women and how they resist ethnic war. Yes, that is what the paper is saying. But then, when it moves from the level of summary to the level of evaluation or judgment, you are bringing your own critical lens on what this person has said. If her claim is that women suffered most in the Biafran ethnic war, and this is what she wrote here, using Sunset at Dawn as the data, you read, and your judgment there is to say, has she enough evidence? Did she give enough evidence from Sunset at Dawn to prove that women suffered most? read the work. You are not just summarizing Ivoma and her work. People could said that women suffered most. What are the claims? What are her supports? The evidence she used to support this claim. And in your judgment, are these evidences enough to substantiate that women suffered with? So you are a judge over this work you have hit. You understand me? Good. So what you are doing at that level is to engage with these 6, 7, or 4 papers you have finally decided to make part of your research, your literature review. So you are evaluating, not just collecting them, you are evaluating the sources. Then the next thing you do is to write. And in writing your literature review, you make it conversational. What helps you to make your literature review conversational? Pay attention to this, is to move away from that sense of summary, listing the 5 persons or the 10 persons you have downloaded your work. And in the workshop we will be having, I've shared it into groups. In the workshops we'll be having, that is the cardinal thing you'll be paying attention to. So in conversation, you synthesize their argument. You find where this argument relates. How do you achieve that? You achieve that by the way you organize your literature review. And that leads me to the next step, organization of the literature review. If you want to achieve a standard way of writing literature review, you've got to pay attention to how am I organizing this literature review. And the 3 ways of organizing your literature review I'll be teaching you will be 1, the thematic way. Thematic organizations to organize based on the themes these authors are discussing. Organizing your literature review based on the theme. Number 2 is based on the methodological organization. And number 3 is based on time, chronological organization. I will take them one after the other. We go to that the organizational patterns. Another thing you need to also pay attention to, I've said it in person actually, but the credential, the credibility of the source you are getting. Remember when I was listing the names I see here, I was also saying I've not seen any African writer or any African sounding names. There's no way you can write on African text. It's not possible that we do not have critics on migration and this, on women's health. So, in gathering your sources, pay attention to the authors who are gathering sources from. What is their credibility? What is their expertise? You can't just, from nowhere, be getting sources. And so what you do is to look up the profile of these people, of these authors. You find a work written by Emeka Nzekwe, for instance. You look up on Emeka Nzekwe. And if this Emeka Nzekwe is a Wikipedia straddler, the work will not be credible. Do you understand me?
Yes, my.
If Emeka Nzekwe is a professor in Michigan University, for instance, that work will be credible. If Emeka Nzekwe is a professor in UNN, that work will be credible. You get my point? So, and if you search online, you don't see any other place where this name is mentioned except on that article. There is not a credible article. Because in publication, you have what we call predatory journals. Predatory journals. And what do predatory editors do? They float a journal that has no name, a journal that has no link, that is not credible. And you submit your article to them today, the next week they will publish it. No peer review, nothing. But credible journals, you submit to them, they remove your name and send it to their reviewers. It is called blind review. They remove your name from what you said to them and they will send it to someone in India or any part of the world, a scholar there. The person will read the work without knowing who wrote it and write to the journal to tell them this work is strong enough for publication in your journal. And this process does not just take only 1 week. It takes not less than 2 months, 3 months. So, predatory journals, from the word predatory, they want who to pound on. So, predatory journals will tell you, bring 50,000, bring 100,000, we'll publish your work in the next week. They won't even see that you did not put full stop or that you did not italicize this. They'll post clip, and then when you pick words from the internet, even at your level, there are things that will show you that this work has no credibility. And when you see such logs, unreview them. They are not. Once you add their name to your work cited, it reduces the value of your work. You add such name or such title to your work cited, it reduces the values of your work. In work cited, it reduces the value of your work. Okay? So, credibility for the sources you get for your literature review is extremely important. If the scholar recognized in African literary studies, if what you're doing is based on, I have one of you writing on mythology. If what you're doing is on mythology, there are critical voices on mythology that when you review them, put them in your work cited, they boost the image of your work. So if it is an African literature thesis, is that scholar recognized in that area? Who is the author? Are they professors? Where are they? This establishes authority for your work when finally it comes out this way. Do you understand me? The people who discuss it, I give you a very typical example. If you come to a debate table on 2027 election and you find on chair number 1, V2B, you come to chair number 2, you find that you come to this place, you find maybe Atiku, you find Zibadu or Tinubu and all critical names in politics. And you come to another debate table, the same issue, election 2027. You come there, you find one primary 2's child. You come the other way, you find one woman that you know very well, she's selling apple somewhere there. You find another person. And you want to talk about credibility. Which of these tables is more credible? Please do the first one. So it's the same thing. When we come to your work cited, this is because your work cited is the table of discussants in this paper. You get my point? Yes. Everyone on your work cited are the people who contributed to making this paper. So if what is on your work cited is not credibleness, that means this project or this standalone literature review is not credible enough to be cited. Right. So credibility extremely important. And the contents of that work. Some people will come say they're doing women and ethnicity, and they end up doing women and another thing. So when you read a text and it does not sound credible enough and authoritative enough, you leave it. Go online, search for what will help your work. All right. So drop that. Um. Okay. Then, so I said that in writing literature review, you organize in many ways, but we're going to pay attention to these three. So the first one is the thematic organization. This, if you organize based on the theme, that is why I would have loved to add the God, but it's still okay. I'm so sure you understand me. Eh, let's go. So now look at this work. It is an outline. Okay, let's go ahead with this one. Chapter 2. So after your introduction, which should not be anything less than a paragraph. You have 3 pages here. It is yet to be a paragraph. 3 pages. 3 lines rather does not make the paragraph. Okay. So like 6 lines and a book. So after the introduction, when we come to the structure of a literature review, I'll tell you what the introduction should contain. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. So after the introduction, when you come to the body of your work, you can either organize the body of your work based on the themes these Sebo Zepas have raised. You can either also organize it based on the methods they used. You can organize it based on the time they wrote. These are the 3. So when it comes to theme-based organization, this is mostly used in the literary studies in our area. So you use theme-based organization when you are explaining key themes. When you are explaining key themes or issues. This is a fairly good example of key themes or issues. The issue this paper is discussing is what? Migration and what? Women's health. She is discussing displacement. You are discussing what? Just give me one. Displacement. Male infertility, excellent. Childhood innocence. Existentialism. Transnationalism. Resistance. So that motherhood. Migration. So you find out that you have themes that is carrying your study. So in reviewing these works, you have gathered 10 works. When you are reading this person's work, you note the ideas this person has raised in this work. Let's say 4 core arguments from this work. Remember, you have established that these 7 works are what you need for your literature review on displacements. For instance, okay? These are the 7 names that will come in that first section 2.1. So you read this person, the argument this person is making is 1, 2, 3. While you're reading it, you can also note by the works. For instance, you read here and it's a strong argument, you write by the side of it. Argument number 1 or theme number 1, 2, 3. The same with all this. When you have read, you categorize them, what their ideas. Definitely, if this person wrote in 12 pages, there are many things the person must have said, but the ones that you feel relates to what you are writing will be 4, 5. You note them. When you have done that, it is possible that an idea here can also appear here and maybe on the 7th work. So when you have read, writing now, you organize based on these themes. So that if an idea here, this silence as a result of displacement, this author is saying that silence is a result of displacement. But it's not in this work, it's not here. Or you find an idea like that here and find it here. That means the first theme or one of the themes you'll be discussing your critics of will be silence as a form of displacement. And once, remember your paragraph, how to write your paragraph. I don't know, forgotten. A paragraph has perfect sentence as supporting sentences. That is what makes up a character. Add the transition. I like to add the transition sentence, because the transition sentence helps you to point to what the next paragraph you'll do, so that you have a connection between all your paragraphs, so that your paragraph will be anchored. So, if in that paragraph number 1, for instance, you want to discuss this theme, silence as a result of displacement. In your own words, remember, don't lose your voice when you write. And you only lose your voice when you are just quoting without bringing your own judgment to the discussion. So in your own voice, you'll be the one to state that critics on displacement, authors who have contributed to scholarship on displacement, some authors have singled silence as a result of displacement. Sentence is coming from you. She's doing gender, the study of gender in what's a common text we have now. In Ikwe Ama's what? The beautiful ones are not yet. What? I don't even know what I say. All right. Ikwe Ama's The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born. That is the title of her topic, of her project, Ikwe Ascension. Yes. The title of her project is Gender in Ikwe Ama's The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born. And in her literature review, the works she will get will include authors who have written maybe gender in Things Fall Apart, gender in Adichie's Americana, because these are people who have studied gender in other texts. Okay? She can also find gender in Ikwe Ama's Things Fall Apart. I tell students, don't shy away from engaging this topic that looks like yours or that is yours. When you read it, when you engage it, I mean, is critically reading it. See what this person has done. If what the person has done is exactly what you want to do, then know that you do not have an original topic. But in reading it, you discover that possibly this person used the theory post-colonialism in discussing gender in Ikwe Ama's. And what I want to use is realism or existentialism. You have a gap. So that particular work that looks almost like yours should be part of these 7 words. Remember, 7 is not static. I'm using 7 as an example. You can have 10, you can have 15, you can have 5. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
So, when you have brought all those, so gender and Ikwe Ama's work she in her break, I amongst the beautiful one, the beautiful one. Nice, because voice are not best one. She gets other works. When she reads all these works, she can say, okay, I'm going to discuss on this issue of gender based on maybe patriarchal violence. That's one theme. So you look for who among these seven brought up the idea of patriarchal violence. So in that paragraph where you are discussing patriarchal violence, for instance, you begin with critics on gender in African literature have looked at this idea of gender from the point of view of patriarchal violence. Ngozi, for instance, in her work, you now bring it Ngozi. Emeka, in her work, did not fully support what Ngozi is saying. However, his idea of patriarchal violence is that so because you're picking it from the word, you understand? Yes, from that word. So once you have established that theme, the ideas coming up, the supporting sentences coming up will be evidences you're getting from the critics that have something to do or say on that theme. I read you an example that I have here. Several critics emphasize that women are disproportionately affected by environmental collapse. That's it. That is your topic sentence. Several critics means that I didn't read it from just one person. It is an issue in this area that I am studying. Okay. Then particulars now. Okuyade 2013. That is a work published by Okuyade in 2013. Okuyade 13 knows that in half of Yellow Yellow, Zilafei's Yellow Yellow has maybe kind of Derek. Yeah. Yes. So by saying Okuyade notes that in Yellow Yellow means that Okuyade's work is on what? Do you get the point? Good. So Okuyade knows that in Yellow Yellow, Zilafei is the one of the characters in that sex. Some of you don't read. And this work is something you can finish in 2 days. So Zilafei's struggles are linked not only to personal identity, but also to the destruction of her mother's farmland and fishing grounds. Pay attention to this sentence. My own as the person writing on environmental degradation and gendered consequences is that I've stated several critics emphasize that women are disproportionately affected by environmental collapse. Because that is what I understand from their arguments. Okay? Now, picking them one by one now. I mentioned that Okuyade notes. So, notes imply that I am taking this from this work. You understand me? Good. So it's either you paraphrase what you have there or you quote him verbatim. So paraphrasing, I say, he knows that in Yellow Yellows, Lafayette's trouble are linked not only to personal identity. She did struggle because she's just a woman. That is nothing he's saying. It is appeared. She is arguing that the Lafayette did not struggle because she's just a woman. That the destruction of her mother's farmland also affected her. It's part of the struggle she had. That is from this one. Okay. Yes. The novel shows how ecological Similarly, in Helen Habila's Oil of Water, John Smith observes that. So similarly, connects this next work that I want to bring up now to the previous one, because it suggests that this person is aligning with this other person. Do you understand me? So, which means, so that is what you do when you do thematic organization. You are reading the works based on the themes or the argument people are reading, and connecting the works based on the arguments. What I said you shouldn't do is picking Opiade's work after reading. Maybe you've spotted 4 ideas here, and they vote the paragraph discussing this whole paragraph, and you drop Opiade. You bring up Emeka's own, you come to the next paragraph, maybe you spotted two ideas here, you just discuss a group. That's the summarizing. You are dropping them one by one. But when you discuss thematically, you pick one theme, and anybody that has contribution on that theme, you're bringing the person into that paragraph of discussion. Either one paragraph or two, you leave that theme, you come to another theme. Maybe under that same gender, you come to another theme, and that theme is female resistance. Any person that says something about female resistance comes in that discussion, irrespective of text. Irrespective of text. Because remember what we did first, sourcing your relevant words to review. Once you have them, read them and note the ideas, and write your literature review according to the ideas you find, because these are the discussion in this area. You get the point? So the discussion in gender you found in these 7 words. And for you to present this discussion in gender studies, you present according to what they are saying, not who is saying. You get the difference? You present according to what they are saying, not if you are presenting according to who is saying, you are going to be listing the what parallel. But if you're presenting according to what they are saying, now we're moving over to organizing methodological. Almost the same thing. But now your focus is on methodology. And you know methodology, or theoretically, methodology, you can also organize theoretically. So if, for instance, remember you have 7 works, yeah? And this person used feminism to study or analyze this text. This person used Marxism, feminism, Marxism, post-coloniality, and so forth and so on. In organizing now, you can also organize based on this approach to the study, this method to their study. So in your paragraphs will be really critics in gender study. No, it's not going to, because gender study now, we're taking another example. Critics of women's health. Why did I move away from gender study as an example? Because that one is a field of its own. Okay? So I want to take an issue. And this issue now, many have written about it based on so many. Now, a very good example is you're doing a literature review on your text. Your text. Okay? You can organize the literature review you're doing on the text. Things fall apart, for instance. If she's doing displacement in things fall apart. The first part of our literature review is literature review on studies on displacement. 2.2 will be literature review or studies of things fall apart. Okay? So in that area of things fall apart, she can also organize her literature review in that area based on the method or the theories people have used to read things fall apart. So that the initial part of it now will say, Chinua Achebe's seminal text, Things Fall Apart, has been analyzed using many theories, such as feminism, postcoloniality, structuralism, and so on and so on. So that the next paragraph now, you are bringing up every critic that has reviewed or studied Things Fall Apart using postcoloniality. Critics who have studied postcoloniality have different views on Things Fall Apart. Emeka, for instance, using Things Fall Apart, using post-colonial theory to study Things Fall Apart, discovers that, you say that's one. Amanda, even though she used post-coloniality, has a different discovery or point of view to the text Things Fall Apart. So that in this area, you are discussing based on all those who have written something on the text from the point of view of postcolonialism. When you have done that, you come down to the next one. Even though most of the works done on Things Fall Apart is based on post-colonial study, there are some critics who have also analyzed a text using Marxism. It now opens up to your discussion of maybe one or two or three. Your voice will come in also if from your study you discover that you have little or less from the point of view of Marxism. It will offer you as the judge or as the writer to bring that up also. Do you understand it? Yes, so good. So that is the methodological approach or structuration, organization. You also have the chronological. You have the chronological and just a minute. Also organize chronologically. So, and you organize chronologically when you are tracing the evolution of a theme. The evolution of a theme, you organize chronologically when you are tracing how something has evolved over time. When tracking the evolution of principal thought on a text or author is central to your argument, you use the chronological pattern. So, if for instance you want to review, I said, when tracing the evolution of the game, or when tracking the evolution of a critical thought on a text, how people's idea on Things Fall Apart, for instance, has evolved over time since it was published. That is when, so if your project is paying attention to history or time idea, you use the chronological method. For instance, if you're studying on the representation of women in the history of Civil War literature, that is a project topic. The representation of women in the history of Civil War literature. You see what you're doing there? So far that you said in the history of Civil War literature, you're now looking at, you are collecting all the literary works on Civil War. from sunset at dawn to this time, all to yellow, half of a yellow sun. And so when you are presenting discussions on this area, you have to also present them chronologically. You have to present them. You have to say, writers, maybe you put them in blocks of generation of writers. First generation writers, second generation writers, third generation or contemporary writers. You can also put them in years. From 1960, independence 1960 to 1970, this and this and this are the discussions or the works on civil war in civil war. So when you do that way, you are presenting your work chronologically. Another example I have here is shifting critical reception of Flora Montas. Flora Montas is with yes. And you're studying critical reception, how that work has been received over time. So the works you're going to download now will be authors who have written on if. Do you understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
From the time it was published up to this moment. And when you read, and if you have so many, you can now thin down to particular reasons for particular reasons. Okay. When you have read them, one can now discuss in your literature review based on initial writers on April, midpoint writers on April, and contemporary writers on him. You get my point? So you can also categorize your literature review based on time. Chronology means time. It's gotten from the word chronos. Chronos means time. All right.